Hey everybody, it's Monday the 21st of March 2016. I'm Dakia with an update for you on what's up with my painting. And I finished this figure, Jo March aka Evelyn 2.0. As with one of my recent other models, I hated the way the base turned out, so I just covered it up with lots of grass. Now she's running through a flower garden, it looks like. She turned out okay. There's a few rough spots, mostly, well, because there are some microscopic imperfections in the resin. There were some mold lines I could not completely take away. I think you're going to see one on the top of her thigh on the jacket there, for example. And there's a few places, like her cheek, where I've noticed in previous videos when I watched them back, it looked almost as if I'd caked on the paint too much. But that's not actually the case. That's not what's going on. It's just microscopic pores in the resin. It's not perfectly smooth. But that is only visible in this extreme magnification when this really close-up photography. You can't see it with a naked eye. So also the sword is bent and there's nothing I can do about that. Again, this is because the resin is so thin. I don't dare try to fix it. But you can only notice that from certain angles. You probably won't think about it at all in practice. So that was one model that took a while to complete, but I think the results are okay. And let's look at the next big thing. So, time for a look at the Dark Wizard. What have I done? I've highlighted up the inner robe here in a kind of, still sort of a dark turquoise, but with a few slightly brighter highlights, because he's going to be covered up mostly by the outer sleeves. So I don't want to go too bright because that would look cartoonish. And next up, I've started on the belt here, and I need to finish that and the various trim, the gem there and the trim along the collar. This little detail here. And then I can go on to the head, paint the face, and attach that. I've done some preliminary work. The base is kind of done. He's going to be standing on this rock. I've done the inner parts. I've done the sleeves of the robe. Okay, so it's like this. I've been painting the same turquoise as the robe, of course. And then the inside of the cloak is black or dark purple. The staff shaft is a dark brown. While the outside is just, sloppily base coated. This will be improved later. But these really dark colors, the black and so on, I'm not going to highlight that at all because it's kind of going to enfold this portion. There's not going to be any light. You'll see what I mean when it's put together. And then we have these portions which are just simply primed so far. It might look like it's all in a jumble, but there is a plan, there is a method to the madness, and it's all going to come together in the end. I promise. And here we see a selection of toads and cats on the prowl. Some of them we have some reference for. This is how they painted their snow leopard and the ice toad. As you can see, the leopard is kind of similar, but I went with more of a bluish tone. I think ice should look more blue than gray. Let's see if we can get that to look. It's rather simply painted. And the Reaper Ice Toad I also did in a similar color. Just some washing and dry brushing, nothing fancy. And now, painting leopard spots. This is the first time I've done that, and this was a learning experience. I figured out some things not to do. The difficult thing is that if you paint them in natural scale, as in correct scale, they're going to be too small and it's going to look just like a mess. But if you do them too big, it looks comical, like cartoonish. And I have gone, I think, on some of these too big and perhaps too yellow on the inner portions of the spots. I think, yeah, this one is actually my best attempt. I got a good scale on the spots on this one, I think. Oops. Mostly on this side, in fact. On some of the others, it looks a little blotchy. But, hey, at arm's length it looks better. Yeah, so, you know, you can't count on something being perfect the first time you try it. And this was a valuable experience. Next time I paint leopard spots, I will hopefully remember this and learn from my mistakes. So the genie kind of jumped ahead in the queue a bit. He's kind of like 75% done already, and the lamp is probably more than that. Simply because he was really simple to paint. It's not a great model, not a great sculpt, but it's easy enough to paint with speed painting techniques. From one thing to another, the lamp was actually separate from the rock. It was glued on. And that gave me a chance to try the new super glue I bought, the Gorilla Glue. And, well, the first thing I want to say about that is if you're going to market it as the best glue in the world, you should start by being able to glue on the label. It just, whoop, it can't stay on. Also, the bottle is only like half full when it was new. Kind of disappointing. But anyway, my first tried using the Gorilla Glue was this little piece here, and it was not an impressive experiment because it did not work any better than normal super glue. I had to use an accelerant to get it to stick because it's a very small connection point. That doesn't prove or disprove anything. It just shows that for these really difficult cases, it's no better. I did use it later to glue on the tail of one of the werewolves that fell off. It seems to be staying on now. So I can't really do a review of this until I've used it more extensively. But initial impression is that it's kind of overhyped. But that might just be bad luck. And this section of Beasties looks really dark at the moment. This one looks really, really dark gray. And the werewolves look dark brown or dark grayish. This is because all I have on them right now is base coats and shading. No highlights as of yet. They will become much brighter with the highlights, of course. And the highlights will be done mainly through dry brushing because there's a lot of fur texture on these. This one has a little bit of actual skin showing. That'll have to be painted in some other way, but most of these are like overwhelmingly fur. And as you can see, I've done them slightly different colors just to get some variety into them. And yeah, because there's so much dry brushing, so much fur, I want to be not be sloppy, but be careful in my dry brushing. So do several different layers. So that might actually take a little time, but it should be done by next week, unless I have no time at all. We'll see. And here we have the doggies. I haven't really had time to do more than clean them up and glue them to these bases. I went with, these are round 30mm bases instead of the cavalry bases they were delivered with. I think that's more in keeping with the rest of my stuff. What can I say? Oh yeah, to keep going with my sort of non-review of the Gorilla Glue, that's what I used to put them on these bases, and it did set a little quicker than normal super glue. And one advantage I'm discovering this stuff has is the viscosity, which is sort of medium. I mean, compared to something like ordinary super glue, which is really thin and runs all over the place, or gel super glue, which is really thick and runs nowhere, the Gorilla Glue is actually somewhere in between and is just fluid enough, actually. It's a very good viscosity. So it has that going for it, at least. But yeah, there's more prep to do on these. Finish up the bases with other grit to fill it out, and then priming and whatnot. And yeah, you know the drill. So I've dug up some minis that could be useful for lots of purposes. You know, Frostgrave, any other sort of fantasy skirmish game, Dungeons & Dragons, any sort of fantasy role-playing game. These are by Fenrir Miniatures. They're in resin. First we have some dwarven skeletons, which are 3 skeleton warriors that are shorter than normal. Simply. Then we have the iron golem, which, let's see, you can see is like a suit of armor with shields and a sword. The sword is separate, you glue it on. And this thing, which has the wrong label, it says the iron golem on this one as well, but it's not. It is in fact an earth elemental, which, yeah, golems and elementals can be, you know, constructs in Frostgrave, or they can be used as such in D&D. We'll see if I get started on them until next week. So the Malifaux section this week is short and perhaps something of a surprise. You haven't seen this guy before. This is Tuco, who is a Neverborn model. I think he's kind of a renegade guild member originally. And I painted him pretty much as in this picture, except the brown on the coat was somewhat less red in my version. You know, it's fine either way. And I haven't actually finished anything else. See, what struck me was that the other stuff that was on my painting table for Malifaux was stuff that was possibly useful sometime in the future, but not really useful for the masters I play right now. And I also realized I have a tournament coming up soon I want to play in. Very soon, as in next week. So I looked through my boxes of unpainted Malifaux and asked myself, what do I have that I can paint up in a relatively short time and that will fit in with my existing crews? And the only one I came up with was this guy, who fit both criteria. He can work with the Zoraida crew, which is Neverborn, and he was simple to paint. A really quick job. I have other models that could work with Zoraida or Marcus, but that are much more time intensive. That would take a lot more work to finish. So this guy got priority. But now that he's done, and like I said, I only have a week until this tournament, no time to paint anything else that's going to be played, I might as well get back to the other stuff I was doing and finish that up. So, things are chugging along nicely, it seems. And what are you looking at now? Well, I thought I'd close this episode out with something different. I don't have anything really directly miniatures related to show you that's new. So, I thought I'd show you something that could probably be an inspiration for my miniatures painting in the mid to near future. This is The Curse of Strahd, which is an adventure, kind of a mini campaign for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's actually the first adventure for this edition that I bought. I've been very restrictive this edition. I got burned last edition on 4e. I kind of I was really invested in 4e. I bought everything for that edition, even the less useful stuff. With 5e, I've so far really only bought the main 3 books. I got the 2 sort of adventures they put out before 5e was actually published, when it was still called DD Next and was kind of a playtest form. But apart from that, no, I don't have any of the products put out, because the adventures they've produced, well, they've gotten kind of poor to middling reviews. Especially the first 2 dragon-related scenario books were very poorly reviewed. And so I kind of held off. But this one got overwhelmingly good reviews, and so I took the gamble, I picked it up, and I am very pleased with it. I like it. It's essentially the old I6 Ravenloft module, expanded with a lot of stuff for the countryside of Barovia, and made into more of a sandbox, even more of a sandbox than it was before. So there's no railroad of the adventure. It can go in a multitude of different directions. And I like the theme and mood of it. But it's, of course, very undead heavy. And you see where this is going. I'm going to want to paint a lot more undead miniatures, probably. Yeah. But it's going to be a while before I get around to this. I think this is going to be the next campaign I run as a game master. But I am currently busy with the Call of Cthulhu campaign, the Horror on the Orient Express, which is still not quite halfway through and could, use up most of the rest of this year probably before we're finished with it. So it's not an acute issue. I don't have to start getting into the painting right this minute, but it's time to start planning ahead for it. Anyway, that's all I had for you this week. Probably not a whole lot will get done until next Monday, because the weekend is Easter weekend, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday is Easter, and here in Sweden, especially in Göteborg, Easter holiday means GothCon. It's the country's oldest and largest gaming convention, which I will be attending, and so I will be busy with just playing role-playing games and miniatures games and board games and whatever, and not have time to do any painting. But the week after that is the Easter holiday, which means I'm off work. The holiday as in the school holiday. So I will have a whole week free to do whatever I want after that. But anyway, I'll see you on Monday, and we'll see how far I've gotten with the projects currently going. Until then, I'm Dakian. Have a nice week. See you then.